like my raps, but really I write songs. I like to do it like this once in a while to show some versatility and make you all smile. It's been a long time coming, I know, I feel it too. The more I take a break, it's like the more I break through. With my time of space boy funk, I'm on point and bless this microphone every time I use the pen and pad. I face the bad head on, escape inside the music. See my diary's a song, it's on till I write my next verse, then I go again into the studio. I feel I gotta flow again. This ain't just music to me, it's like my recipe. To be honest, it's more creative tranquility. This ain't just music to me, it's like my recipe. To be honest, it's more creative tranquility. I was spitting when you was a kid, you doing what I did, you know I still got it. Why you brag about it? I be on the soul.
Okay, hi everyone. I hope you can hear me okay. Just wanted to start off now, it's just turned 2 o'clock. My name is Bharat Sharma and I'll be hosting the webinar session today. I'd just like to thank you for joining the 6th webinar in our webinar series, which today aims to discuss the future of eHealthOpenSource.org. If you do have any problems, please let us know using the voting box on the bottom left. If there's also a mini guide to assist you that will appear during the main presentation, and that will help you sort of participate in the discussion part coming a bit later. There's also the ability to make the presentation full screen, so when the presentation actually starts, feel free to use the full screen button if you can't see. And just a note, if you do see an orange box flashing at the bottom of the Your Comments box, that's probably me trying to help you if you're having any technical issues. So today, this webinar is going to consist of a 30-minute presentation, followed by a 20-minute discussion session. So at the actual discussion session, everyone will have the ability to use their microphone or their phone to speak. So if you'll be able to hold any questions or major comments till then. And today we're very happy to invite Jill Foley and Natalie Liao to present and facilitate the discussion. So let's see if we can get Jill on the line. Jill, would you be able to activate your microphone?
Hello, good afternoon, Barrett.
Hi, Jill. I hope everyone is able to hear Jill okay. I can hear you loud and clear. If everyone, just to test the voting system, if you can hear Jill clearly, I wouldn't mind if you'd be able to click the All OK Now button on the bottom left, just as a little test. Okay, we've got 1 response that's coming in saying it's okay. We've got 2. That's great. So we have a voting system up and running there. So if you do have any issues, please let me know using the voting buttons and I'll be able to assist you as soon as I see that. To Tony, basically it's in the bottom left. There's a heading that says Technical Issues, and you'll see some radio buttons underneath that. Now you may have to scroll down, there's quite a few options there. No problem, Tony. Okay, so I'd like to now hand over Jill to start us off. Jill, would you like to go ahead?
Good afternoon. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I noticed that there's only a few of us joined at the moment, but I am expecting more attendees later on that have registered. Just to introduce myself, I'm Jill Foley. I work in the Data Standards and Products Informatics Directorate along with my colleague Natalie. The future of eHealthOpenSource.org is now. The aim of the webinar today is really to consult with yourselves and to understand how the eHealthOpenSource.org can be taken forward as an ecosystem beyond September 2011 when our project ends. So just to give you an overview of what I plan to cover today, essentially today's session aims to give a brief overview of eHealth Open Source from its origins to where we are now, what assets it has to offer, and then to the main objective, which is about our transition proposal and to get your views too. And I aim to cover this in 4 areas, which is the background, assets, transition proposal and your views. So to give a little bit of background, and I appreciate that most online now will already be aware of this, the Department of Health Informatics Directorate has been working closely with in partnership with the University of York for for the last 2 years on a funded project. This project ends in September this year. It's currently resourced with a full-time research assistant, and we've got one academic member who's online with us today, Kieran, and then of course myself, who's the industry supervisor, which previously was Denise Downs. After September, this resource clearly ends, so today we're looking at how we take this forward beyond today. So at this point I'm just going to hand over to Natalie to describe this.
Yeah, thanks, Jill. As you can see from the picture, the ecosystem is a concept containing clouds with different colors, which represent different open source communities. The 2-year KTP project serves as the engine of the ecosystem to identify, facilitate, and connect open source projects and communities in healthcare. During the past 18 months, the KTP has developed the ecosystem business model consisting of a marketplace model, a contribution model, governance model, and partnership model. We signpost open source projects and help them increase visibility in the NHS. We also have conducted and disseminated research findings such as a case study, white paper, best practice with regard to open source license, procurement, business model, and so on and so forth. We have organized workshops, webinars, and other kinds of network events to help facilitate the appetite of open source in general in healthcare. For example, we have a website portal, ehealthopensource.org, to share news and events, knowledge and policies. And currently we've got quite active dialogues in our LinkedIn group and Google Forum. On the ecosystem distribution list, 35% of participants are from suppliers and 25% from the NHS. Therefore, to increase the appetite of open source in the NHS organization is one of the things the ecosystem should look into in the near future. And Jill, do you want to introduce the Smart Healthcare 2011, where we have a variety of activities going on?
Yes, thank you, Natalie. On the 14th and 15th of June, there is the Guardian Smart Healthcare Live exhibition, where we've managed to gain ourselves a small stand to promote the ehealthopensource.org organisation. And basically, we will be attending. We aim to share our learning and promote open source for health and social care. We've currently prepared a banner and postcards that we hope will encourage and engage the wider NHS community and health in general. Alongside this, we're running a competition with The Guardian, which is looking for 2 categories, which is open source best practice and open source best business case. The closing date is in fact the 30th of June. However, we did have an earlier closing date of the 16th of May, where we offered the opportunity for those that got their applications in early to provide a demonstration of their successes in the business. And we've got a number of suppliers that will be presenting there, one of which is an NHS acute hospital provider. So we will look forward to seeing some of you there. So what are our assets? Well, we see the portal as one of our assets. It's got a knowledge centre, we've presented case studies, events and showcase projects. Going forward, we hope to have on there a code forge, which is under development as we speak. It's been donated by a supplier who we've got on this call today. The initial code forge will be fairly basic, it's very experimental to test the concept and get things out there. But we aim to have 2 access models, which is so that we have a secure environment for the NHS staff that are still resistant to open sourcing their products to more than just the NHS, and then there'll be the open access model. The first is really in response to the NHS's request, which was that some organisations feel reluctant at this stage to share open source beyond the NHS. So this model should support that. And then of course we will hopefully have a future webinar which we will be able to demonstrate this. At this point, Barra, I'd like to see whether Rob Dyke, who's contributing this Code Forge, whether he would like to add anything to this.
Okay, Rob, I've just activated your audio. If you'd like to click the microphone button if you do have any comments. You can also just add, if you just type your comments as well in the comments box if you're not able to use the microphone. Okay, I think we'll come back to Rob. If Rob is on the phone, would you be able to just let me know using the comments box?
All right.
Okay, no problem. Jill, if I continue, Rob will come back to us when he's able to.
Okay. So is open source supported by the government? Well, the answer is yes. The Cabinet Office produced their ICT strategy recently, which sets out a number of aims that need to be achieved by September 2011. One of which is the government plan to publish a toolkit for procurers on best practice for evaluating the use of open source solutions. They also plan to establish an open source implementation group and system integrator forum and an open source advisory panel. And I'm pleased to say that we've got a meeting with the Cabinet Office on the 9th of June to talk through them how health currently works, as we found that this operates different to some of the other government departments. So we've agreed to share our learning, any barriers, challenges and strengths and opportunities that we've learned along the way. So that we're very positive about that. So, where are we now? Well, essentially, we're now into June. The project's coming to an end in September, as I've said earlier, and therefore we're really looking for something to start transitioning from now that takes us to the end of September. And so we're really looking for an ecosystem management body, which is, as I say, the main purpose of today's webinar. So I'd briefly like to discuss our transition proposal. I've tried to keep the slides purposely very short and very sweet so that we could concentrate on the real matter today, which is discussing going forward. But the three main themes that we thought were important to consider are about the ownership going forward, governance, and then just the general upkeep of an ecosystem. So in terms of ownership, all right, okay. I've got a message now from Barrett saying that Rob is ready to speak. So in fact, I'd like to go back to Rob because I think it's probably worthwhile doing that, and then we can come back to these other slides. Okay.
Yep, I'm just going to unlock the phone line so Rob can speak.
Thank you.
Lecture mode off. All participants can be heard.
Thank you, Barrett. This is
right,
Rob Dyke.
Rob is... Hi, Rob. Please go ahead.
Yes, just to touch briefly then on the CodeForge, Tactics 4 have volunteered and donated the infrastructure on which we are running a CodeForge, which is similar to the SourceForge software. It's called GForge. It has the various project services for code development and coordination, collaboration between organisations. We're certainly going to sponsor this infrastructure by donating the capacity certainly for the foreseeable future, and support the two access models that we're speaking about there. And I hope that we will have more details on this in a future webinar when perhaps we will be bringing in other open source code that has been developed by CFH and other healthcare organisations onto that particular forge.
Thank you, Rob.
Thanks, Rob. I'm just going to lock the phone lines again.
Lecture mode on. Only presenters can be heard.
Okay, so back to the transition proposal. So from September, obviously, we're looking to see that there is some sort of ownership of an ecosystem to take it forward. as I've previously stated, there are no plans for this to be owned or maintained from central government or the NHS. So when the project ends, the resources disappear, and we're really looking for somewhere to offer the portal email address really for someone to take that on board if they so wish. So, you know, in order to go forward, we're potentially proposing that we're looking at a non-profit foundation organisation. So do we want to create an organisation that has ownership of the assets and in effect the ecosystem brand name? That's one of the questions that I want to present, which we'll discuss at the end. Governance. Do we need a board of directors? If we set up an organisation, then a board of directors is required to govern, in which case would we need a set of subcommittees? How would we run it? Would it be run on a volunteer basis? Again, this is where we hope we can get advice from yourselves as to how this could infrastructure would work. And then last but not least, upkeep of the ecosystem and the website. There would obviously be administration costs associated with upkeeping an ecosystem, and maintaining a website. As well as that, there would also be issues around the funding. Would it be community owned e-market? Would there be a service charge, a membership fee? Again, these are all questions that we've asked ourselves, but that we want to pose to yourselves today as to how it can go forward. So I said I would keep it short and sweet, so we could get down to the real meat of the business, which is to ask yourselves how we go forward. It's basically over to you to get your views, and so this is your opportunity to influence the future implementation of an open source ecosystem for health and social care. Barrett, would you like to explain how this works?
Yes, thanks, Jo. So for the discussion session, I'd be grateful if anyone would like to basically participate. If you could actually raise your hand, that will tell me that you'd like to speak. You can do this using the button on the top right of your toolbar, so just a little person raising their hand. And if you're on the computer, what I'll do is I'll give you access to a microphone button. What you have to do is just click on that button, wait a few seconds, and the button will turn green where you'll be able to speak. If you're on the phone, I'm going to unlock the phone lines, I think now actually, so I'll just unlock it now.
Lecture mode off. All participants can be heard.
If I could ask anyone on the phone to mute their phone unless I announce you, just to avoid sort of crosstalk and background noise. If you have any issues, please use the voting or comments box and I'll help you out. Here, I see we have a question from Tony Shannon. Let me just enable the audio for Tony. Right. Craig, we'll just come back to you in a second. So you have a question as well. Tony, would you like to click on it should be a microphone or phone button at the top of your screen. And if you click the appropriate, use your computer.
He will dial in.
Hi, Jill. Sorry, what was that?
I think Tony will dial in. So there is another one.
Dialed in. Tony.
So can you go on to Greg first, and then we can go back to Tony.
Okay. Right. In the meanwhile, Craig, I'll just enable access to the audio function for you. Okay. So Craig, you should have a microphone or phone button appearing in the top of your screen. If you're able to click that, you should be able to use your microphone headset. Unless you're on the phone, in which case you can speak right now. And we'll just bear with us a second. Let's see if Craig is able to access the microphone. Hi Craig, can you hear us okay? Okay, not able to hear anything from Craig at the moment. Let me just see what he's just typing a comment in. Maybe having some issues. Okay, In the meanwhile, Craig, I'll just try and help you with that. Tony, if you're on the phone, would you be able to speak now? You should have access to the phone line.
Yeah, okay, I can hear you if you can hear me now. Can you hear me
I can
okay?
hear you, Tony.
Yeah,
Please go
hear you
ahead.
fine.
Yes, we can hear you fine. Please go ahead, Tony.
Yeah, I mean, thanks very much for the presentation so far. I mean, I think I'm not able to go back a slide, but you know, the key question so far has been raised as to whether there's a need to create another organization or a new organization to take on this work and to foster it going forward. And I think it's a very good question, but my initial instinct is to say that why would we want to do this within the UK alone, and what are the reasons not to just be trying to tie in with the Open Health Tools initiative, because that seems to be the international front runner here, and I think unless we can prove that that's not worth joining in as a member of, then I'm just not convinced that we should be recreating this within the UK. So I might put that question to Jill.
Yeah, I think that's a very important question actually that you've raised, and that is something that I will take back to the steering group members. It hasn't actually been raised, certainly not with me. I don't know if anyone has raised it with you before, Denise, have they? Hang on.
Hi, Denise. Sorry, I've just given you access to the microphone button. Denise, if you're able to click the microphone button, I've given you access. Denise, can you hear me okay?
In fact, while
press the microphone phone button.
Well, while we're waiting, Barrett, can I just make it one comment?
Of course.
Yeah. Before I joined the project, a consultation was done with the NHS where we did talk to the NHS organisations about open source, and there was a reluctance from certain parts of the NHS to open source. So I guess my understanding is, having taken on this project, and Denise will be able to elaborate more, is that we were looking to provide an infrastructure that was safe and encouraging, but without it being a top-down approach, so without it being Department of Health or NHS Connecting for Health led. So the reason we've got to where we are at the moment with these proposals is really to get people to put a toe in the water, and that was the initial reason that we are where we are now. Having said that, that's not to say that Tony's suggestion isn't a good and valid one, and I think we do need to take that back to the steering group. But I think, you know, what I've just described is one of the reasons why we've been looking to do something much more specific to the UK, but recognising that in the true sense of open source, you know, we don't really want things just to be the NHS, and we don't really want things to be just the UK. But I think it's going to take a while for some of the NHS community to get on board with this concept, and so we're just trying to facilitate that, really. I don't know if you've got anything else to add, Denise.
Sorry, I think some people are having issues with using their microphone. What I'd recommend is if you go to Meeting and Audio Setup Wizard, I believe it's a very quick add-on which would take no more than 5 seconds to install to allow to use the microphone. If you do have any issues, please feel free to use the teleconference number that I've displayed on the screen there. Okay, I believe we have Denise on the phone.
Can I come back to you,
Denise, would you like to...
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Tony, I agree with everything that you're saying about OHT. The only problem is that we weren't getting any response in the UK, and that's why we tried to set up something separately.
Yeah, but and I understand that, but I don't think that the setup of a UK-based open source thing will necessarily radically transformed the level of involvement in the UK. What I think will be more likely to change it will be, UK-based projects that are actually open source and coming from the bottom up and from places that tell a UK-based story, but within the broader context of what's happening in this field internationally. So I don't think setting up another foundation in the UK will be a game changer. I think the game changer will be trying to get more local UK-based projects that contribute to the OHT mission. I'm certainly, the work we've done in Leeds, I've spoken to Skip about as to how we can try to contribute that to the international piece, because I wouldn't want it just to be seen as a UK-based effort. It needs to be seen as part of the broader international effort.
I mean, from our point of view, we have liaising with OHT, so we've kept Skip up to date in what we're doing. I think what we recognised is that 2 years was not long enough to actually get a momentum going. And so any suggestions as how do we keep the website going, how do we generate more projects, how do we generate more interest, even if long term that linkages with OHT was, so I think this is a wider thing rather than just a governance body. It's how do we keep the momentum going and how do we get more people interested?
Well, I mean, can I be blunt and just come back with my instinctive reply to that? I mean, the way to get that, I think, addressed will be to get the Cabinet Office and Christine Connolly to be more public about the value of this space. But the confusing messages still remain from the top down about the role of open source in the NHS, and until the messages change from the Cabinet Office or the DH, is that those of us who are trying to do anything open source are still the odd people out, if you like. So that's where the maximum kind of change, I think, a benefit could happen, is if we get different messages coming out about this space.
I think that's important, Tony. I mean, as I say, I've spoken to the Cabinet Office and meeting with Qamar in a couple of weeks, and what was very apparent is the way the health service works and operates with suppliers and systems and solutions is very different to other government departments. So they've definitely got an open ear, and he has close links with Christine Connolly, and the purpose of the meeting is really to discuss the barriers, the challenges, everything that we've faced over the last couple of years, and discuss that with them, and for them to try and help rules and governance in terms of policies and procedures to potentially be overturned on the basis to facilitate and support open source. So I think we've already got a route into the Cabinet Office, and if anybody has anything literally that they want me to take forward to that meeting, please feel free to email that through to me, and I'm more than happy to take that through to them on behalf of health as a whole. But I'd like to think that we've already started that journey, and we might start to see things overturned that makes it a lot easier for us to deliver open source concept.
Yeah, I mean, it should be a no-brainer for them to support the website and the small community that we've got going. I mean, that should be just a no-brainer for them to just put a bit of petty cash into that. I can't see how they could say no to that.
I think the difficulty that we've had, and again Denise can correct me if I'm wrong, is that we've didn't want this to be a top-down approach. So we all believe in this, and it's a no-brainer to us, and we'd quite happily take this forward. But the new rules where it can't be top-down, government-led, because that tends to switch organisations off. So what we've really tried to do is stimulate organisations. And as Denise said, we're only 2 years into it. We could have probably done with another year to stimulate the market a little bit more within certainly within the NHS and and wider. But we are where we are, and so we've got to work with that. But I don't know if Denise wants to add anything to that.
I guess some of the difficulty for us is as well that because we were set up as Connecting for Health, we've sort of been running this as an interest project around our own tools rather than, you know, a sort of a big project to take open source forward, because that's not part of our remit.
I understand that.
Hi, it's Malcolm here. I joined about 5 minutes ago. I didn't want to interrupt the conversation. Hi. Can you
Hi,
hear me?
Malcolm.
Yeah, hi Malcolm, I can hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I couldn't get into the eHealth open source Adobe Connect thing, so I've just joined. Anyway. I mean, I've listened to the last 5 minutes, as I said, and I kind of agree that, you know, government should have a kind of supporting role. But obviously, we don't want it to be a controlling role, and if we can find a sort of happy medium, that would be cool, you know. And but clearly, government, in the shape of the Department of Health here, of course, will have its own agenda in wanting to promote things in open source, and I think that's a legitimate interest. So, you know, sort of promoting or implementing standards in the shape of open health tools, you know, it's perfectly legit and should be encouraged. But in terms of the sort of wider promotion of open source across the NHS, I think it probably does need to be a firmer steer, really, from Cabinet Office. I think they're prepared to give you that steer. I don't think there's anything holding them back. But I guess they're also wanting the department to take a more leading role, rather than everything coming from Cabinet Office all the time. You know what I mean? Sorry, does that make any sense? Can you hear me?
I just can hear you fine.
Yeah, that does make sense. And as I say, you know, we are working with the Cabinet Office, and I think, you know, as Kwamar said, he deals directly with Christine Connolly, so there is the direct link to the Department of Health, and I think we're possibly at the beginning of a journey there to work with them. So, you know, for want of finding better words, we are where we are in terms of we've got the project that we're running does end at the end of September, and we're very conscious that we're trying to stimulate the market. We're not going to have the resources at the moment to run this nationally, so we really are looking for, you know, help and support if it's out there to take it forward as an entity in itself, and really that's what the discussion was for today, to see what the options are, you know, what we can do. And I take on board Tony's suggestions, but have we any other suggestions?
Well, who do we have on the call? Is it? Do we have any large companies on the call?
Actually, Nick Holden would like to speak. Nick, would you be able to go ahead? I've given you access to the microphone button, and if not, you can use the phone as well. Okay, I think, is Nick having some issues? Nick, are you able to use the microphone/phone button? Okay, Nick will come back to you. Craig, would you like to go ahead in this case?
Can you hear me okay? Anybody hear me?
Hi Craig, please go ahead. Okay, I think Craig seems to have a problem with the microphone. Kieran, would you be able to go next? You should have access to the microphone/phone button. Otherwise, if you're on the phone, please feel free to speak. Okay, Kieran's microphone's not working. Basically, Kieran will be writing comments to the bottom right. Nick, you fixed your microphone. Would you like to go ahead? Are you able to use a microphone? If not, just please let us know using the Your Comments box. Okay, there's a link there as well that, to openhealthtools.org. Let me just add that to our useful web links so that everyone can access that. Thanks for Tony for that link. Okay, Jill Kieran's asked a question which is in the Your Comments box. He's asking if there are any pots of money that could be used to support the project for 6 to 8 months after the project. That's questions for you, Jill.
Yeah. I'm afraid, certainly from the CFH at the moment, we've got no, I've been given no remit that there'll be any more money after September. You know, it is something we have been talking about internally, but no, there's nothing there at the moment.
Okay, we've got Craig on the telephone now. Craig, would you like to go ahead?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you fine, Craig. Apologise for the issues you're having.
It's okay. Okay, hello. So, I suppose where I'm coming from, so I know that some of you are members of healthictportal.com and are working on the ITK communities on that site, and or maybe some other communities on there. And I suppose the reason for my input is because I see some of the synergies between what eHealth Open Source is trying to do and also what ITK is trying to do, in terms of there are initiatives that are out there that require community-driven involvement to help promote and share innovate and share best, create and share best practices and experiences and software methodologies, that kind of thing. Now, one of the things that we're doing is we're in the process of just putting some amendments into the site to give more tooling to these kinds of communities. So to create and share so things like wikis, events calendars, etc., etc., etc. So you're really just an offer to say that you're more than welcome to go in and set up a community on the site there, and you may benefit from some of the cross-fertilization with the other communities on the site. So things like the QIPP, the Clinical Data Standard, the ITK. There's more communities coming on every day. So it's really just to say there is a place there where you'll be able to go in, set up a group called eHealth Open Source, set up different subgroups inside there, maintain your own web pages, maintain your own group management, document resources, etc., etc. But you can, again, share those with other groups. So anything that you're doing that is leading to the QIPP initiative, which is basically what everything should be about these days in terms of improving cost efficiencies. That's really what Health ICT Portal is about, is providing a place where everyone can go and do that free of charge to create and share this best practice. So it's really just an offer really to let you know that it's there. I'm more than happy to pick that discussion up offline with anybody else afterwards if they're interested.
Thanks for that proposal, Craig. Yeah. Yeah, again, I think from our perspective, you know, working from the Department of Health / Connecting for Health, you know, we are seen to be impartial. So this is really about the community. So if I'm not answering some of the questions directly, it's because, you know, it's not our decision. This is really about the communities. And I guess at the end of the day, it will be the communities that decide and agree where, you know, things are hosted. And I think, you know, looking at the uptake of the participants we've got today, at the moment is about 7 in total. And we were expecting more, but not too many more. I mean, maybe there isn't, you know, the appetite for it still isn't really there. And I think that's what we're trying to stimulate, really. It still seems to be a pocket of individuals that can then see the light. And I think, you know, the whole plan really is to try and get organisations to want to do this. And so the question is, for the NHS, what's in it for them, why would they share, what do they share, and potentially, I mean, and we can try and do this before the project ends, is to try and show some of the benefits realised by doing open source. And so we hope that when we get the competition entries back by the end of June, we hope that we'll be able to share the learning from the competition of where people have had successes to hopefully promote open source and how organisations can see what's in it for them. But in terms of where things are hosted, you know, who administers it, who governs it, it is a tricky agenda, really. I think that's where we are today, is that at the moment it's not a DH or CFH delivered approach, but I do like to hear all the different options that are out there, and then the community will be able to decide. Does anybody else have anything else?
Yes, sorry, Jill. I was going to say, I mean, it may be worth just reflecting, you know, as the 2 years comes to a close, as to why things haven't taken off more. And you know, if I can just again give a perspective again from Leeds. So on the one hand, you know, we have got some kind of local interest, and we've got some interest around the trust and the university. And Owen Johnson emailed because he's interested in the potential for, you know, trying to support, you know, the establishment of a foundation. So there is some local interest happening, but at the same time, even though you know, I've had expressions of interest from other people around the UK as to what we're doing, people aren't necessarily committing to projects yet, or they're still at the early stages, or there isn't a lot of money around. And I'm quite surprised, really, that you know, there isn't been more of an appetite for people to just get on this movement at this point in time. But it points, I suppose, to the fact that everybody's kind of inclined to do their own thing in their own local patch, and we still don't have enough kind of you know, local demonstrators, you know, of where this can work well. So I think, you know, if I'm blunt, I mean, I suppose what we've achieved, what's been achieved over the last 2 years is some kind of sharing of information between a small number of us, you know, in terms of you know, a small community and a website and some articles and so on. And yes, we don't have enough kind of exemplar case studies that can tell a story that people kind of can you know, get their energy around. And I think until we have those kind of local stories of success in the UK and people kind of getting on with it and making a success of it, maybe you just the idea of a kind of a top-down foundation in the UK at least won't thrive. It's just too early yet, and it's kind of amazes me to say it, but I don't know what you think, Malcolm, but that's just the sense I get over the last 2 years, is that people still, this is still early in people's thinking, and I can't understand it, but that's the way it feels for me.
Yeah, I kind of really agree with you, Tony. It is a bit of a surprise, I think, to see that a top-down, you know, NHS, let's say the Department of Health supported open source initiative hasn't sort of captured the imagination of people across the NHS. But I think it's true. I mean, there are some projects. I mean, some projects are beginning to come through the competition, which are really interesting, and yours is one of them. Moorfields Hospital is another really interesting one based on totally different technology. I think if we keep plugging away, you know, in the background, perhaps using the vendor channels as well, you know, the open source vendor channels, we will, you know, it will get better. This time next year, I think this will be a much more interesting meeting. But I tend to agree, the top-down approach hasn't really worked.
It's Craig here again. Just a thought. Are you guys tying in with Inderjit Singh in his QIPP ETV initiative?
I haven't heard of that one.
Okay. That's basically
Yes,
a
yeah,
basic-
Craig, we have been, sorry.
Okay.
Well, there are. Sorry, hi. This is Rob Dyke. There are other sort of example bits of open source software that have been developed by CFH. The Snowfry and the Curio reference project. Perhaps putting them on your own forge and perhaps engaging with the healthcare ICT portal to promote those much more actively. We might see that contributes to that slow forward movement that I think Malcolm and Tony are perhaps alluding to in their statements there. With this time next year, this time next year. I mean, I'm certainly talking to people about open source being the enabling strategy for many projects on a weekly basis at the moment, whereas 5 years ago in enterprise or in healthcare, I would never have had those conversations. So I think it's certainly helpful that we carry on. I kind of also agree with Tony that there's perhaps it's unnecessary to replicate locally or even sort of at a national level structures that are already in place internationally. However, we do have to act locally. We can think globally with a nod to open health tools and organisations like that, but we should act locally, sort of at least nationally, through projects like Health ICT Portal. Tactics4 have offered a forge for hosting code on, if we can get the CFH code that's been produced so far onto there. So, try and get that balance between, working on these projects at our hyper-local levels, our immediate day-to-day existence, but also at a national level, but with still an idea to something internationally. Then perhaps, yes, as Michael McCoy rightly says, this time next year it would be a very different sort of meeting that we're having.
Yeah.
Sorry, we have a question from Nick Holden. Sorry, I hope you don't mind, because I think Nick's been waiting quite a while, actually.
Yeah.
Nick, would you be able to go ahead?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you
Yes.
fine.
Oh, fantastic.
Yes, I can hear you fine.
Apologies.
Welcome. Sorry for the difficulties.
Well, thank you. Sorry, I've discovered a failing with Adobe Connect in terms of Firefox and 64-bit Linux system, which is a little bit disappointing. But I've had to downgrade to a Windows system, and now I seem to be able to talk to you. I wanted to make a couple of points. Firstly, a kind of general support in terms of engaging with existing projects, particularly internationally. It seems to me that a lot of it's in periphery of
Hello? Sorry, I can hardly hear that.
and the email.
Yeah, I can't hear
sorry,
you now.
Nick, if you just bear a second. Sorry, could everyone be able to put their microphones on mute and their phones on mute, please? There's some background noise that's interrupting Nick. I apologise for this, Nick. Okay, the line looks...
I was saying that there's a lot of the discussion on the list is kind of about how do we promote open source in principle. My experience tends to be that it's a lot easier to encourage people to be interested in it if you're promoting a specific tool or a specific application that meets a requirement that people actually see as being a direct benefit. We, as a research unit, which is our perspective, we're using a number of open source applications, most of which have come out of states where there's quite widespread use. So things like the CA-BIG tools that were funded and developed for quite a long-term commitment to the NCI. I think if we could get some more widespread take-up of some of those tools, we could build communities around that. I'm actually in the middle of a discussion with a couple of people from the NCI about the possibility of establishing a European user group for CA Tissue, which is their specimen management, effectively LIMS tool from within the CAPS. And I think if we can encourage take-up of tools like that, we can build communities around the tools, which is probably easier than trying to build a generic community around the principle of open source, which I'm absolutely committed to. But in terms of my day job, my job is to deliver functional applications, not to deliver to a particular principle of software development, much as I might like it to. So that's kind of one general point, and the other is about engaging with communities around existing tools that are being developed out in the world, and seeing whether there is enthusiasm for securing funding or just development commitment from the community here to make it appropriate or more used in the NHS. Again, I've got a very research oriented focus. That's the nature of working. But what we are looking at is things like CA Big software, recruitment, and we're engaged with that, and presumably things like OpenEHR are developing similar communities around the use of their applications. Is a kind of clear in the NHS.
I'm losing him. I can't hear.
Yeah, I'm struggling.
Nick, it seems we're hearing some background noise. I think perhaps from the mic is picking up some noise in the back of the room. If we just try again quickly, just to see, would everyone be able to just turn their microphones off and allow Nick to speak again? Nick, we only lost the last I'd say about 10-20 seconds. It just has gone a bit quiet then.
Okay,
I'll just give it one more try, please.
I've turned the microphone volume up. There's really no other sound here. I'm in a closed room. So,
that's much better, Nick.
Okay, bit of extra volume.
That's much better.
Right.
Yeah, thank you very much, Nick. I apologise. Please continue.
No, that's fine. Really, the only other the kind of conclusion of my second point was around trying to provide a clearinghouse, I suppose, between the NHS perspectives and the kinds of specific requirements that we have here, with the global developing communities around such as OpenEHR, for example, so kinds of open source. One final point, which is just possibly a bit of information. We, with our university partners at Leicester, are kind of waiting on tenterhooks to find out whether it's from GISC through HEPS, with the view to trying to turn some of the applications that we've used in our uni into something almost software as a service kind of provision. And again, I wonder whether there's any enthusiasm for that in more general healthcare NHS application. Ours is obviously a little bit specialised in that it's directly related to clinical and medical research.
Thanks for that, Nick. Sorry, we did lose a little bit still. I think it's just a case of some background noise there of the microphone. But hopefully, would everyone like to comment?
Well, thanks, Nick, and thanks all your comments. And just from my own experience in past 18 months, I just realized the KTP project, we did have some dialogue with international and EU level projects. For example, for the previous webinar, one of my colleagues presented an open source project, which is an aggregator, a web portal, similar like what we want to do in Germany. And also, Kieran and I, we also had a meeting with a professor from New York University. And I just feel that a lot of my work is about to go out, to clarify with people, to clarify if they have any question, have any issue with open source, and to identify some of the open source practice in healthcare and try to help increase the visibility and try to coordinate with different organizations, especially NHS organizations, to say, if you have already developed something, do you want to go down open source routes? If you decide to go down open source, what thing you need to consider and what problem you might got and what help, what support we can develop. So I agree with Tony that it's very important for some local authorities to gain some initial credits on open source projects. But I do feel that the open source projects need someone to take the job, just to go out, to talk, just to coordinate with different organizations, different open source communities, and also have the kind of dialogue with international or EU open source projects. So I think that's one of the objectives we propose. We want another organizations to take over the ecosystem just to maintain this kind of work.
That's probably a good place to finish at, Barrett, I think, unless anyone else has anything to add.
Got about 2.5 minutes, so if anyone would like to add anything quickly.
Rob Dyke here. Just to say, if anybody has anything they want to contribute to the CodeForge in terms of design or content or code, do please drop me an email or make contact with me via LinkedIn.
That's great. Thank you, Rob. I can see Rob's left his email address there in the comments box. So please go ahead.
Malcolm here. Hope you can hear me. Yeah.
Hi, Malcolm. We can hear you fine.
So
please go ahead.
What's the agenda of the next meeting?
Which meeting are you referring to? The steering group?
Yes.
It's basically to review the steering group members and the discussions that we've received today. So we'll have all the input from today to feed into the steering group meeting.
Okay. I thought we could have a special focus on... Are we going to meet to discuss the competition soon, or we can take that offline, Jill?
We'll take that offline, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
So in terms of today, I've just got a slide up just to say, we've recorded all of what's happened today, so we'll be able to get notes and share it with the steering group members of the ecosystem. Because I think there's been some really valid suggestions today that we potentially hadn't really thought of, so we'll feed that back. But if you haven't had an opportunity to speak and there is anything you want to say, please send it to the email address there, which is ehealthopensource@googlegroups.com. And we aim to have another webinar the second week in June, which is after the steering group, to feed back on where we're at, basically. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much and all your contributions and for attending today. The recording will be online soon. I especially want to thank Jill and Natalie for their time as well. Before you leave, if it's possible at all for you to answer some feedback questions, just to let us know how you found this webinar. If you have any further comments, please feel free to leave them in the comments box as well. Or you can contact us using the details that should appear on the screen. I don't think they're appearing, but let me see if I can get those up. I just do that. So again, thank you for your time, and I hope you found this session useful. And if you'd like to see any of the useful web links we've just collected during the webinar, they're on the bottom left. So that's it. Thank you very much for attending, and take care. Bye-bye now.
Thanks everyone for your time. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.